Now this looks like some good stuff. Too bad it's not enough of it like there is wood chips still. Every year I'm always trying to come up with different ways of making compost passively, which means I don't have to turn anything. And this is great, especially if you have some health issues or maybe some back problems like I do. So in this video, it is all about opening up and explaining what exactly is it that we're looking at here, and that is called a bioreactor. Let's go. What's going on, my plant peoples? I am the ADHD gardener, where I use gardening, houseplants, and humor as a much needed form of mental health therapy, sobriety, and also using my garden, to learn some ADHD hacks, tips, and tricks on how to navigate this crazy ass world. Hopefully, I'm learning a little something through some plants. I have a very large garden that requires a boatload of compost. And let me tell you, I can't turn. I can't really do any turning or flipping of any compost, being that I have a lot of back problems. So that means I had to get a little creative. So what I have here is a play on the Sue Johnson bioreactor. It's either Johnson Sue bioreactor or Sue Johnson. I forget. I'll put it right up here. But what it is a passive way of composting. Now, I did a video on this, setting this up and explaining a lot about it. I'm gonna drop it in the description below and right up here, so you can really go check that out for a more detailed information on how this is set up and what was my thought process behind it. But for now we needed to open up and we needed to check out what was going on. Now, this was at least exactly about 10 months ago. I wanted it to be a 1-year experiment, but you know what? I needed some compost. So we needed to open this up, but it's been at least 10 months. So we can at least get a little peek into what's going on the inside of this thing. The original Johnson Sue bioreactor called for using cattle panel in order to make the frame structure for the bioreactor. However, I did not have that, so I wound up getting a little creative and using landscape fabric and pallets. I'm questioning this design shape, given the information that I'll talk about later on. Wow, there's so many ants.
That's why I was getting bit by ants.
You have gloves on, so...
You wanna...
Oh, man. Okay. Well, obviously it's still going to take a lot more time to decompose. This was definitely less than a year. Oh, man. That can't be good. We just Googled why there's so many ants inside of the compost pile. It's because it's too dry. Way too dry. Okay. And I'm thinking that it had a decent amount of moisture in the inside. I would have thought that it could have used a lot more water. True. I mean, very true. I just didn't think it was that dry. Obviously, it was too dry because a bunch of whole ants. Oh. So, I'm assuming that if I add more water, then the ants move out. Can the ants move out? But that's beside the point. The point is, are they bad for my garden? Okay, well, the most organic way to get rid of them is to add vinegar.
Or we can soak this.
Or we can soak this in water, but would that really make them go away?
Yeah.
But then they're all gonna go into my garden.
Yeah, it's worms.
It's always a good sign when you see worms in your compost pile, because they do a lot of decomposing for us. Well, ladies and gents, as you can see here, there is not a lot of composted material going on. This has yet to be fully broken down, and there's a few reasons why that did not happen. For this bioreactor, I was using wood chips because I had a tree cut down on my property that I just, took all the wood chips for. But I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to use for this year's compost? So stay tuned in the future, because I'm thinking of making a bioreactor just like this, but using a different material, not wood chips, maybe leaves or leftover sunflower stalks. I'll always have something to decompose. Now, in a perfect world, I would be able to have like 5 of these different bioreactors going on in my backyard, considering my backyard is pretty large and I need a lot of compost. So maybe we can, come up with another way. This will definitely give me a lot of compost, though, for a lot of these beds. Nice. Take off one of those? I mean, might as well if you're going to be messing with at least one of them.
Oh, look at the bottom.
If you see right here, the middle of this bioreactor had a lot of these metal pipes, and that was the key, and this is what makes it different from every other compost. The Johnson Sue, or is it Sue Johnson bioreactor, they always used some sort of tubing. Now this is made out of some hard mesh wire or something. You don't have to use this. I've also seen other people use PVC pipes, but the point of it is that you want to introduce a lot of oxygenation into the compost pile. Remember, we are not turning this at all. This is a passive system, which means in order for this to properly decompose without it rotting and having that terrible anaerobic smell, which means without air, then we're going to need to introduce some oxygen. You know, this is what I'm thinking. I did not get enough aeration inside of the compost pile to really make the decomposition a little more faster. Another factor is that I did not have enough manure inside of this bioreactor. I did put a few bags, but obviously it was not enough. Okay, let me know down in the comments below, because we already know that if you have unprocessed or unfinished decomposing wood chips, that they could possibly just steal the nitrogen from your existing garden beds. So I'm wondering, could I really put this in the garden beds? Like, some of these wood chips are pretty darn big still. So if I was to put this in my beds, then it could be stealing some nitrogen. In order for you to prevent the nitrogen being stolen by the wood chips from your raised bed, then you would have to add extra nitrogen source to your raised bed or to the wood chips. You could be adding extra nitrogen-rich fertilizers that would help prevent all the excess stealing of the nitrogen from the soil, and just use it for the wood chips by itself. Question is, whoa, that leads me to sifting. That's what I should do, sift next. Well, that's a big worm. I also notice when it comes to the sifting that a lot of the top layer is super dry. Where you're going to get the moisture and find the most composted materials is underneath it, where it is a lot darker. So over here on the side is a perfect example, because in the top layer it was super dry. I did not get a lot of moisture, as well as I did not get a lot of compost. Over here toward the center, where it's a lot darker, where it's holding on to more moisture, that is where you're going to get a lot of the compost. It does need to break down more, so we're going to either leave it. I mean, the only thing I can use out of it would be the sifted stuff. So, unless, oh yeah, that's smart. Dude, that's smart. Maybe that's why Dad made it like this. We can always just like start adding stuff to that pile, like food scraps and stuff. More water, maybe some more manure, and just kind of like, we have just think of it, a already well started compost. Another thing that could have definitely been used more is food scraps. I did not throw enough green inside of this. That was the missing factor. The green and the manure, bam, it needed to go in there. Maybe possibly some more worms. I could have added a little more worms to this process. We did see a lot of worms inside of this compost, which was a great thing to see. I just wanted to see more. And also, maybe with all these new additions that I'm going to be building for the next bioreactor, stay tuned for that. Maybe within 1 year, the following year, they will look a lot better. Also, I'm thinking that it's probably going to look better because I'm not using wood chips. Maybe I'll be using leaves or some other broken down material. Maybe that would work faster. Another idea, why don't I just build another bioreactor using this very same material to see what it would look like next year? I really hope you enjoyed this video and you got some really good information out of it. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you have a compost pile? And if you do, is it active or passively composted? I would love to know. Do you have one of those like tumbler things? That's pretty interesting. I was thinking about making one myself because my dad had one a few years ago. That would be pretty interesting. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to smash that like button. I really appreciate it. Also, you can catch me on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. TikTok is more my sobriety and mental health journey and learning all things about ADHD, my journey to become a future therapist one day or a counselor, and also, just having fun with learning about me, myself. Till the next episode, you guys, where you and me both are going to be growing our happiness one plant at a time, one day at a time. I'll check y'all later on the next episode. Peace and love.